it's we can see that it's a really, really quick and easy way for parties to reach a dispute without, having that huge delay, without having that huge cost of lawyers on both sides. It just seems to me to be the way for parties to resolve their disputes in just a far simpler way.
Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Lawrence, the founder of Mediator Locator, and welcome to our short video series, Meet the Mediators. In this series, we're getting to know the people behind the role. For background, Mediator Locator is a national mediation service connecting clients, law firms and organisations with the right mediator for their case. And we have a panel of expert lawyer mediators with many years of specialised experience. Mediation is all we do. We're not a directory. We actually source the mediator for you and give you a perfect fit for your disputes. And this series is a great way to meet the mediators and see the human side of mediation and why choosing the correct mediator can make all the difference. So I'm delighted to start by saying I'm joined today by Claire Rolston. Morning, Claire. Thank you for joining us. Perhaps we can start by you saying a little bit about your professional background, who you are and what you're doing.
Of course, thanks, Stuart. So I'm a solicitor and I have been qualified since 2001. I've always been a litigator, so started off in commercial litigation and very quickly realised employment law was my thing. So I've practiced in predominantly employment law for the past sort of 23 years or so. I've come to mediation quite recently, although I have had experience of it as a professional advisor. So I've been involved with a partnership dispute, a dispute over restrictive covenants, a workplace dispute involving TUPE. So quite a wide variety of things, but on the advisor side. So I like the mediation process. I can see how beneficial it is. So the opportunity arose to undertake my mediation training earlier this year. And yeah, I've kind of I'm working towards accreditation at the moment, but I've got 2 mediations actually booked in for later this year.
Fantastic. And you set up and founded CLR Law, didn't you?
I did, yes. I founded CLR Law in 2010, so we're 15 years old this year, and it's really nice to be able to add mediation, alongside our traditional employment law practice, which obviously does involve a lot of litigation, but we can see the benefits of mediation, and that's why both myself and my colleague Sarah have trained as mediators.
Great, that's great. And you're based in the northeast, up in Newcastle area.
Yeah, we're on the south side of the river, so technically Gateshead, but yes, we cover the Newcastle Gateshead area, and obviously the northeast is a huge area. So, but yeah, we have kind of clients locally and across the UK.
Fantastic. And you mentioned you just recently did the training as a mediator. What was it that prompted you to want to do the training?
I just really like the mediation process. So as I say, I've been involved in a couple of kind of private mediations, but as an employment lawyer, we also do a lot of judicial mediation, where it's an employment judge who is acting as the mediator, and I can just really see the benefit of that. I mean, the courts and tribunals have huge backlogs. So we can see that it's a really, really quick and easy way for parties to reach a dispute without having that huge delay, without having that huge cost of lawyers on both sides. It just seems to me to be the way for parties to resolve their disputes in just a far simpler way.
And I suppose with the changes that are coming online in the employment context, there's going to be even more pressure on the tribunals, potentially more litigation, so more scope for mediation.
Absolutely. I don't think we'll ever see a drop in the need for mediation. I think it's only going to get, more and more. And I think as people kind of become more aware of mediation, because there's a lot of, certainly our clients, you mentioned mediation to them and they've just never seen that as part of their internal processes. We deal a lot with town councils and parish councils, and they actually do have mediation as a formal stage in their disciplinary and grievance procedures, but we don't see many private companies that have that. So I think as time goes on, people, you know, get frustrated with the litigation process, you know, more than usual, then I think we'll see people getting on board more with mediation as a formal step in that process.
Okay, great. And you know, with the mediations that you've been involved in, what do you think is the most rewarding aspect of mediation?
I think it's just being able to really take an issue that, you know, where there's a stalemate and you think there's absolutely no chance of this settling, and people dig their heels in ready for, you know, their day in court, that actually the mediator can bring those two parties together to eventually settle upon a solution that does suit them both. I mean, nobody probably walks away ecstatic from mediation. You know, that it's always a compromise on both sides, but it's just one that, you know, it allows, certainly in a workplace scenario or a commercial mediation, just allows people just to get back to work, get back to doing what they were doing, and not spending all that time liaising with lawyers, spending money on lawyers. And it just allows them to just deal with it and get on with their life.
That's interesting. I think you touched on a point there. You know, mediation allows you to preserve relationships, and in the employment context, that's probably more relevant than ever. I suppose in other commercial contexts, the parties in dispute might never have to see each other ever again. They can part ways. But in your field, you know, maintaining those relationships, fixing problems, and having a sustainable way forward is going to be even more valuable, I guess.
It is, because usually once a grievance is raised by an individual in an employment context, that's usually, you know, it's a slippery slope to exit, usually by way of a settlement agreement. And in those situations, that's great, but sometimes, you know, that there are still these underlying issues that really need to be sort of resolved and talked about, and actually mediation could actually help preserve that relationship sometimes, rather than it just coming to a hard stop with a settlement agreement, or obviously if that didn't work, kind of ending up in tribunal. So yeah, it's a really good mechanism for just bringing the parties together to talk in a far more open environment than through lawyers' letters or HR consultants or things like that.
And in your 20 plus years of being involved in employment matters, are there any particular types of dispute that you think are particularly well suited within the employment context to mediation? Or is there anything you particularly enjoy mediating?
I do like mediating around the restrictive covenants, you know, where typically sort of recruitment consultants, IFAs, that sort of kind of profession where they've gone off and kind of set up in business on their own or something like that, and you know they've taken the client database with them, and you know, so there quite often has been a breach, but you know it's kind of seen as very restrictive, so we can kind of help bring the parties together to find a resolution that works for, you know, for both sides. But I think things like really complex grievances where somebody kind of, you know, has either been discriminated against, or there's maybe a whistleblowing issue, just where there's a lot of detail and kind of claims can be quite factual and you know, historic. I think things like that, where somebody, sometimes they're only looking for an apology, and that doesn't come through correspondence with lawyers, and it's something the tribunal or a court can't award. So really mediation's the only way to kind of let people sometimes get things off their chests, and that's all they want to do. They just want to be heard sometimes, but that's not really our place as lawyers or sometimes we just can't get that across in the way that they need to. So it's just a different platform entirely for allowing people to air what is really bothering them. But yeah, really complex grievances where it's quite a lot, you know, it's very personal, very emotional.
Yeah, and then you can have the really creative solutions, you know, like you say, in a litigious scenario, it's often money. And whereas, you know, in a mediation, you can think outside the box and come up with something really innovative. Okay, that's great. And in your experience, you've alluded to a few benefits, but what do you think is the biggest benefit of mediating rather than litigating?
I think it's just removing the uncertainty of litigation, because it's not the be all and end all. And sometimes people, what they're actually looking for is not something that litigation will resolve ultimately for them. So I just think it removes that uncertainty. And okay, mediation doesn't always work, but it allows the parties to at least try and kind of have some some meeting of minds, and they can sort of come together, and it just avoids that cost. Litigation just rolls on and on and on sometimes, and the cost can be astronomical. So it's a certain cost with a hopefully a certain outcome.
And I suppose you can take control of your own destiny in this area. You're not reliant on a determinative outcome. You can actually take control of your own disputes. I remember someone said to me once, well, we are adults, so we can take right decisions. We can be responsible for our own futures. I think that's quite interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you. And CLR are a relatively new member of the Mediator Locator panel, but are you able to give a few words about your experiences so far?
Yes, we are quite new to it, but we really liked what Mediator Locator had to offer in terms of a platform for mediators. So not just, as you say, a directory, but a platform where that you can match mediators with particular parties who require our specialist services. So yeah, we're at the start of our journey, but we hope it'll be a long partnership where we can certainly be of benefit.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's really kind. Thank you, Claire. That's excellent. And I'd like to thank everybody who's watching today on this episode of Meet the Mediators. If you'd like to learn more about mediation or to find the right mediator for your case, and Claire may be that mediator, so do get in touch at mediatorlocator.com. And until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.